The morning sun streamed through the high windows of the Atticunnal mansion, casting golden rays on the polished marble floor. Amara stood quietly in the corner of the large living room, a tray balanced carefully in her hands. Her uniform, clean but simple, made her presence almost invisible to the powerful people who occupied the house. She was new, just 3 weeks into her job as a maid, and already understood the rules. Speak only when spoken to, keep your eyes down, and never linger. But Amara wasn't like the other maids. There was a calm dignity in the way she carried herself, a quiet poise that even the head of the staff had noticed. She never gossiped, never complained, and somehow managed to do her work perfectly without drawing attention. Still, to the young master of the house, G-Day Atticunnal, she was just another girl from the village, hard to scrub the floors and stay out of the way. G-Day, the CEO's only son, was home for a short visit after months abroad. Tall, proud, and spoiled by wealth, he barely glanced at the household staff, treating them with cold indifference or irritation. When he passed Amara that morning, she greeted him with a small bow and a polite "Good morning, sir." He didn't respond. Instead, he looked at her with barely disguised annoyance. "Why are you just standing there? Go do something useful," he snapped, without even looking up from his phone. Amara bowed again and quietly turned to leave. But as she walked away, G-Day couldn't help but glance at her. There was something oddly familiar about her face, something that tugged at a memory he couldn't quite place. Upstairs, Mr. Atticunnal, the CEO and patriarch of the family, sat in his private study, staring at an old photograph in his hands. The girl in the picture had eyes that reminded him of someone he had lost a long time ago. Unbeknownst to everyone in the mansion, secrets were buried under the polished floors and luxurious walls, secrets that would soon be dragged into the light. And at the center of it all was Amara, the quiet maid with a past no one could have guessed. Amara moved about her duties with practiced grace, never questioning her role, but always observing. The mansion was not just grand. It was a fortress of secrets, and with each passing day, she became more aware of the silent tension that lay beneath its surface. There were hushed conversations behind closed doors, long silences at the dinner table, and the lingering stares she caught from certain staff members. One afternoon, while cleaning the old library wing, a section few ever entered, Amara stumbled upon a dusty trunk pushed behind a row of forgotten chairs. Curiosity overcame caution. Carefully, she opened it and found a stack of photographs, a woman's scarf, and a faded baby bracelet. Her breath caught. The name engraved on the bracelet was Amara. Her heart pounded. She stared at the bracelet, identical to the one her late aunt had said belonged to her as a baby. But why was it here? What was hers doing in the Atticunnal mansion? Just then, footsteps echoed down the hallway. Panicked, Amara stuffed the items back and slid the trunk shut just as Madame Elahor, the house manager, entered. "Why are you here?" Madame Elahor asked sharply, eyes narrowing with suspicion. I was just dusting," Amara replied, head bowed. Madame Elahor's gaze lingered, but she said nothing more and left. Once the footsteps faded, Amara allowed herself to breathe again. That night, while serving drinks during a small gathering of the CEO's old friends, she overheard something strange. "You ever wonder what happened to that girl?" One of them whispered. "You mean Titi's child? The one that went missing after the accident?" They said she died, but I heard the body was never found." The tray in Amara's hands trembled. "Titi? That was her mother's name." She hurried away before they could see her expression. Alone in the kitchen, her mind raced. Could it be? Could she really be that girl? G-Day, passing by the kitchen doorway, paused as he saw her staring blankly into space, lips trembling, eyes glassy with confusion. There was something about her, something deep and familiar. But he shook his head and walked on, convinced he was imagining things. But Amara wasn't imagining. She was on the edge of a truth far greater than she had ever dreamed, and the mansion's walls were already starting to whisper her name. Amara couldn't sleep. The bracelet, The name TT, the photos in the trunk, everything pointed toward a truth she wasn't ready for, but could no longer ignore. The next morning, she gathered the courage to visit Mama Nkechi, the old cook who had worked in the Atakunal mansion for decades. Amara had always felt a strange warmth from her, as though the woman had known her far longer than either of them admitted. Mama Nkechi, Amara began cautiously, "Do you know anyone called TT who used to work here?" The old woman froze, her hands pausing mid-peeling. Slowly, she turned to face Amara, her eyes scanning the young girl's face carefully. "Why do you ask?" she said, voice hushed. "I overheard something. And I found something in the library. A bracelet. With my name on it." Mama Nkechi looked away, her face contorted in thought. After a long pause, she whispered, "TT was the CEO's sister. She had a daughter who disappeared after a car accident that killed her. The girl was never found. Some said she drowned. Others believed she was taken." Amara's knees buckled. "TT is my mother's name," she said, voice trembling. "My aunt always told me I was adopted after my mother died in an accident. But she never spoke of my father." Silence hung between them. Mama Nkechi grabbed her hand. "You need to know the truth, child. There's a way to confirm it." 2 weeks later, with Mama Nkechi's secret help, Amara managed to get a strand of hair from Mr. Atakunal's comb and submitted it, along with her own, for a discreet DNA test. The waiting nearly drove her mad. Jide, meanwhile, had started noticing her more. Her poise, her face, her voice. Something about her haunted him. And then one day, while going through old photos in his father's study, he found one of his late aunt, holding a baby who looked just like Amara. He froze. "Impossible," he whispered. The DNA results arrived on a rainy afternoon. Amara opened the envelope with shaking hands. 99.98% match. Paternal relationship confirmed. She was not just a maid. She was blood, the long-lost daughter of the Atakunals. Her whole world tilted. The truth burned inside Amara like a secret too heavy to carry. Every time she walked past the mansion's grand portraits, men and women in regal postures, she now saw herself among them. The cheekbones, the eyes, the quiet determination. She was an Atakunal, born into wealth and legacy, yet raised in shadows as a maid. But how would she reveal this truth? Mama Nkechi advised caution. "The truth can be a sword or a bridge, my child. Use it wisely." Amara wrestled with the decision. She didn't want riches or titles. She just wanted to know who she truly was and why she had been abandoned. Meanwhile, Jide was growing suspicious. Ever since he found the photo of his aunt holding a baby that looked eerily like Amara, he had been watching her with new eyes. Her mannerisms were familiar. Her laugh was his aunt's laugh. Something wasn't adding up. One evening, as Amara was clearing the dishes from the dining room, Jide called out, "Amara, wait." She turned. "Do you know who your mother was?" Amara hesitated. "Her name was TT. She died in an accident when I was a baby. That's all I was ever told." Jide's expression tightened. "TT Atakunal was my aunt." The silence between them cracked open like thunder. "I found a photo," he continued. "You were in it. And now you're telling me your mother's name was TT." Amara slowly nodded. "I know who I am, Jide. I got a DNA test. Your father, he's my father too." Jide stood frozen, the color draining from his face. "You're my cousin?" The weight of the revelation crashed into both of them. All the confusion, the arguments, the strange connection, they suddenly made sense. They weren't just maid and master. They were family. Later that night, Amara asked to see Mr. Atakunal. He sat in his private study, staring out the window when she knocked gently. "Yes," he turned. "I'm your daughter," Amara said, stepping in. "And I have the DNA test to prove it." He studied her silently, eyes wide with disbelief, then slowly reached into his desk and pulled out an old, faded photograph. A baby in a pink onesie with TT's necklace on. "I never stopped looking for you," he said, voice cracking. "They told me you drowned. I buried an empty coffin, but I never believed it. Tears streamed down Amara's face as Mr. Adekunle stood up and wrapped his arms around her for the first time in her life. After years of pain and questions, the truth had finally come home. The news swept through the Adekunle household like wildfire. The maid everyone had ignored, scolded, and underestimated was, in fact, the long-lost daughter of the CEO himself. The whispers, the stares, the quick silences when Amara walked into a room, everything changed overnight. Suddenly, her plain clothes were replaced with designer fabrics. Her name was now spoken with reverence. But Amara hadn't changed. She still greeted the staff with warmth, helped in the kitchen when she could, and smiled gently at those who once looked down on her. Mr. Adekunle wasted no time. He called a press conference and introduced Amara to the world. "This is my daughter," he said proudly, holding her hand. "She was taken from me years ago, but God has restored her." The media went wild. Social media exploded with hashtags like #MaidToMillionaire, #LostDaughterFound, and #TheAdekunle. Her story inspired many, especially the poor and overlooked. But not everyone was happy. Some board members raised eyebrows. "She's not trained. She has no experience. How can she be a part of the company?" Amara didn't flinch. She enrolled in business school and began to work closely with her father, shadowing his every move, asking questions, staying up late to study financial reports. Jide, now fully aware that they were cousins, became her biggest supporter. "I misjudged you," he admitted one evening as they walked through the garden. "But now, I see why you're the daughter of TT and Deji Adekunle. You have their fire." "I just want to make them proud," Amara replied, looking at the stars. As weeks turned into months, Amara took her place at the boardroom table. No longer the maid serving tea, she was now the young woman making bold suggestions, leading meetings, and shaking up old systems. She created a foundation in her mother's name to help orphaned girls and struggling domestic workers, ensuring that no girl like her would ever be invisible again. And 1 year later, on the anniversary of her homecoming, the Adekunle family held a grand celebration. With tears and laughter, Mr. Adekunle raised a toast. "To Amara," he said, "the daughter I thought I lost, and the woman we're proud to call our future." The crowd erupted in applause. Amara stood tall, not just as an heiress, but as a symbol of strength, grace, and destiny. From maid to CEO's daughter, her journey was only just beginning.